Good evening.
Good evening,
Good evening.
Rahul.
Good evening.
Am I audible? I'm so sorry. I'm sure I'm sorry. Okay,
Yes.
thank you so much. I'm so glad. Welcome to this panel discussion. We are incredibly happy to have you all here with us today, and we're very excited to get to learn from you all. So let's just wait for a while for more viewers to join. How is everybody doing today?
Great. Thank you
Wonderful.
so much.
Thank you for asking. Really
Shall we
wonderful.
start?
Yeah, all good.
Very nice to hear. I'm so glad. So before we jump into the discussion, I would just like to give a brief description, a brief background information on the organizations that have made this one of a kind, once in a lifetime type of event possible. And so starting with Switch India, Switch India is a healthcare organization. It's an NGO that's run by medical students, paramedical students, and also personnel. And Inside Out is an impact is an initiative which was started by Switch India, where we provide patients with clear and friendly advice on their mental health issues. And I would love to introduce our honorable speakers here today. Firstly, Dr. Avinash D'Souza, who is famous for his impressive work done by the D'Souza Foundation, which has impacted several lives through both his mental health workshops as well as his seminars. Janvi Sutaria ma'am is a multifaceted professional who works as a counselor, a therapist, and an entrepreneur. She is especially known for her integrated therapy approach and patient-specific perspectives. Lastly, but certainly not the least, Dr. Vidya Nair, also famously known as Dr. Goodwife, who has a unique holistic approach to healing. She has impeccable expertise in treating anxiety, phobia, depression, and identity issues. Now, what we intend to establish with this panel discussion is all of us were without warning thrown into a world where everything was turned upside down. Suddenly, we cannot interact with our neighbors or go to work or even go grocery shopping. And it would not be an understatement to say that we were not prepared at all. And just as easily, we can now say that we are faced with an uncertainty again as we try to combat having to adjust in this post-pandemic world, where a lot of things are different. Uh, so let's just jump into the questions. My first question is for Dr. D'Souza. I would like to ask you, sir, it's been more than a year where social interaction has become less common, where it's become a little bit difficult to have. Has it made us become less interdependent? Are we more lonely now? Is it harder to form relationships here?
I didn't get the last part of your question. You said, is it?
Is it harder to form relationships now?
Well, I think, yes, what COVID has done is social interaction physically has reduced, but I think virtual social interaction has definitely been there. It's not harder to form relationships. I would say the parameters, paradigms, constructs on which relationships were built have probably changed. And as a result, there are more virtual relationships, virtual friends, virtual groups formed versus real life groups. Slowly, of course, we are finishing the pandemic. So we're coming back into mainstream society again. So we're going to have the whole revamping of the entire social structure that we had in the last 2 years. So we're going to again get back to physical meeting, physical relationships, meeting people in person. So I'm sure, I mean, it may take us a little bit of time. We'll have to start low, go slow, and slowly get back into the rigmarole. But I don't think we're human beings, so we basically don't lose the art of relationship building. So I think we're able to manage. So I don't think there's a major paradigm shift. Thank you.
That's a beautiful answer, sir. Thank you so much. And it's incredibly hopeful as well. Thank you so much, sir. Vidya ma'am, is there anything you would like to add on?
I agree with Dr. D'Souza about the fact that we are human beings, we are social beings. So our ability to socialize comes very naturally. And you could see it in the pandemic itself, how we've adapted virtually when we couldn't do it. in the physical paradigm. So in this space now, when the pandemic is almost getting over, we're going to go back to adapting to our previous ways, and now both, in fact, I believe virtual and physical. But from what you questioned is there are aspects I have observed in certain people who are experiencing the anxiety to go outward and build relationship, and that is different compared to the need to to build relationships. There's a difference in that. Of course, everyone wants to build relationship. No one wants to isolate themselves, but the anxiety may be harboring that for certain individuals, which I have observed in certain cases, and that is something which is also slowly and steadily changing because it's valid. The pandemic is still persistent here. It's not completely gone, right? So taking that into consideration is also equally important when people come with that fear of socializing or forming relationship and having physical contact in the context right now as well. Until and unless we have this certainty that it's completely gone, I think some people still have that fear, which is a very valid fear for a lot of us, because a lot of us have gone through a lot of losses over the past years, which has impacted their lives, leading to that fear developing and becoming more stronger in them. So quite valid in a lot of situations. But yes, we do adapt in various ways to build relationships, if not physical, virtual, are various ways we're doing so. Even now, we're all doing the same, right? So it's possible.
Thank you so much for your answer, ma'am. Jami, ma'am, what is your opinion on the same?
So I completely agree to both Dr. Avinash D'Souza and Dr. Vidya Nair, and I think just a different viewpoint here would be that I have seen a lot of adolescents who are especially doing online schooling currently. Um, who have been majorly impacted by by staying at home and by everything being online. The main essence of going out and meeting friends and having that uh, time apart from family was um, uh, one of the major parts of their day-to-day lives. And I think that has really impacted a lot of people. A lot of my clients have been, have seen that I have seen a shift in their personalities before COVID and after COVID. A lot of them have started developing depressive symptoms because physical activities have almost gone down to to zero. And socializing, of course, uh, through WhatsApp and through social media, Instagram and all, has been happening. But there has been so much excessive use of screens and technology also, which has been causing somewhere a change in their personalities from being extremely social to now not wanting to socialize as much. So, depending on person to person, pandemic has impacted everyone differently, I would say.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for your unique perspective. Thank you.
So building on this thing of going into a virtual world, I would like to add that we are now introduced to a new concept of work from home. Uh, Working is for the people who are in jobs. And like Janvi ma'am mentioned, also the students are attending the online classes, which is increasing their screen time. Like, how do you feel? I would pose this question to you, Vidya ma'am, particularly. How do you feel that it has affected the overall productivity of us, the pandemic, basically, and going into an online era?
So this whole word productivity for me is completely different from what people perceive it itself. So that this question, when you ask me, I go to a different tangent, because when you look at the word productivity, conventionally speaking, people look at it's very outcome oriented and result oriented, where you get good marks or where you do well in work, etc. So that's where the term comes. But trying to answer your question from where you come from, where that question comes from. Uh, Working from home, studying from home. What I believe has happened in a lot of individual is the stimulation of the brain has reduced a little bit, right? Because when I look at it from the space of efficiency and of an individual, right? So when you're on a screen. First of all, if you just look at it very simply, it's a two-dimensional thing that you're seeing, right? We're losing out on one dimension itself. Like, so when you actually visualize objects and everything, in my brain, it's a three dimensional object. But when we're seeing it in a screen, we're looking at it from a two-dimensional aspect. So even basic things like visual stimulation is reduced, touch is reduced, sensory stimulation is reduced, right? From working on a laptop, when you go to work, you also have interaction with people where you discuss things. Something that is lacking is the energy that we give to each other when there is physical presence. So if you have observed this, when you go to gym and there is like 3 to 4 people working out with you, you will do better than you doing it alone, right? Because the energy, the collective energy of the space does affect you, right? So in that aspect, I do believe that because we're all somewhere solitary while working. And although, yes, we are connected through this platform of virtually doing it, somewhere we are still isolated here, right? And that decreases our brain stimulation, our sensory stimulation, which inhibits our growth somewhere. Because this is much needed experience, and experience is needed for our growth. And when our experience itself is shortened by various things like the stimulations and physical touch and interaction with people and going out there and traveling, seeing different things, I think growth somewhere is a little bit inhibited. But then again, we're humans, we are very, very adaptable, right? So my brain will obviously adapt to this and try to evolve from this aspect. And we are adapting on a virtual platform. Yes, a lot of individuals are adapting way, way better through this platform than doing it physically. Again, something that Chanvi mentioned about everything, how it affects each individual differently. Yes, I've observed that. But if you had to ask me about it, yes, somewhere working from home just blurs that line between personal and professional for a lot of people, which in my mind also is blurred now. So, and if in my mind it's not blur, I mean, it's not organized, and if it's blurred, so my thoughts are not organized, my emotions are not organized, and everything becomes like a whole jargon in my head, right? So now when that lines are blurred, now my mind doesn't know how to make sense of it because it's all coming out together. It was used to something before. It was used to having this categorized that at work I will behave a particular way, at home I will behave a particular way, right? My whole personality shifts. You might observe it in yourself that how a personality shift at home and work. And now there's that blurring has happened, which is causing confusion in a lot of individuals. Again, which does affect your efficiency as a human being itself, because that categorization is not happening clearly. Although what I also observe, as I said, people are adapting, people are finding ways of still forming boundaries, enforcing new boundaries, trying to enforce that line again at home. So some tips I tell my clients is, work in a different space, have a particular timing for working, and try to inculcate as much as possible as you did earlier. Again, our brain is quite adaptable and intelligent. I truly believe that, but context is very much important in this case when you talk about productivity or efficiency. Each individual might not be able to, even if they do everything possible to do efficient work. The house they're living in, the environment they're living in, the context they're living in might affect the efficiency, and that's very individualistic, I would say.
That's a really different and quite exemplary example. Like, even I can relate to that gym part because I used to study in a library, and studying in a hostel room was very difficult compared to that. And when the COVID ended for a temporary time, it really boosted our motivation to study when the libraries again opened up. So that's a really different but very helpful perspective. So I would like to ask Dr. D'Souza, do you want to add something to this?
Well, I will give you my own personal experience that, I mean, I am in a setup where my clinic is on the first floor and I stay on the second and third floor. So I've been, working from home all my life practically. So the thing is, when the whole work from home thing started, I mean, I was actually wondering, no, why is there so much of a hue and cry anyway? I work from home, and then I realized that, it's so much of a struggle when you have kids on a device, you have the parents on a device, you have everyone in the same room. I mean, maybe I'm lucky, I have space, but there are others who don't have space, and then it becomes so much of a struggle altogether. And there are houses where, of course, not everyone has a tab or an iPad. So the thing is, you have one laptop which the father uses for work, you one laptop which the mother uses for work, the children are using the mobile phones of the parents for school. I mean, so there is a restriction of gadgets also. Or and the worst part is, if you have one child in primary school and one child in secondary, so then you have one child who's online in morning and you have another child who's online in the afternoon. So there's a whole this whole gamut of things which are there. And in the middle of this, there are meetings. In the middle of this, one person is yelling at someone in the office, the other one is, all these things are all happening at home. And I think one of the biggest things that people got to see was, they never really came to know the persona that their family members had at the workplace. That was something that they saw for the first time, that, oh, the whole day he's on the phone, the whole day he's in meetings, the whole day he's, and this is what he actually did in office also. And it was just that when the home got converted into the office, that I think couples realize how much of work each partner does. They also realize, children realize how much of work each partner does. Parents realize, oh, how much of effort goes into schoolwork, and that's how I think, so that deeper understanding also came. That's what I would like to add. Thank you.
Janvi ma'am, would you like to share some experience or provide some or throw some light on this? Ma'am, you're muted. You have to unmute yourself.
Yeah,
Yeah,
sorry.
thank
Can you
you.
hear me? Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
I was actually going to say a few things that Dr. Ravinash just said. That not everyone is fortunate enough to have space in their houses. A lot of working, when both the parents were working, or when all the members of the family were working, or many members of the family were working, and they had small houses, it had become a huge very uncomfortable situation for a lot of them, because everyone has to be available at all times. And
We can just wait for a minute if she can reconnect her network. In the meantime, I would also like to add upon this that there were a lot of medical issues also that we guys face, like increase, like you mentioned, Vidya ma'am, increased screen time. It even my own spectacle number got increased even at this adolescent age, and similarly, like there were the children were forced to stay inside their homes, so it reduced their sunlight exposure and like decreasing the vitamin D exposure also. They decreased the vitamin D serum levels. So are there some other examples also that you would like to provide?
I think Ms. Janvi is back.
Yeah,
yeah.
Janvi ma'am is back. Yeah, ma'am, you
And
can also okay, so there's a confusion. You can also again come to what you were saying about the living in a small house.
Yes, yes. So that was one point. The other point was um, that I think when we speak about productivity, which was I think the main question, in a way productivity had increased as well, because traveling time, especially in cities like Mumbai or Bangalore or Chennai and all of those cities, traveling time was one of the major aspect of the day. Because of COVID, that particular time had reduced, because of which people were more active while those hours, and were able to be more productive in that sense as well. um, Psychologically, I feel overall it was lesser productivity, because again, because of the reasons Dr. Vidya and Dr. Ravinash D'Souza have just mentioned, that uh, the boundaries, I think during COVID, the boundaries were absolutely blurred. No difference between personal and professional timings, and all of those things. So productivity wise, one way, if you go to see, it had drastically reduced. But when you I think once everyone got used to, once that the initial phase went, and once everyone got used to their routines, then productivity slowly and gradually increased, because they found out ways to figure out their schedules and all of that. So I think initially it had dropped, but then later on it kind of increased.
Yeah, the way the humans get adapted in the similar way,
Adapted.
using that to our benefit. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
ma'am, you can start with that question if you've heard it. The medical aspects of COVID, like decreased vitamin D, increased sun exposure.
Sorry, I couldn't hear that question.
So I was building upon the same thing that you guys earlier told, like COVID increased our screen time due to being online, work from home, study from home. So it had various medical aspects also. Like in my case, my spectacle number got increased even at this
Hmm.
age of 8. And similarly, kids were restricted from going outside, reducing their sunlight exposure. Therefore, their vitamin D levels in the serum they got decreased. Like, did you guys see other medical issues that the clients faced due to COVID and going online? We can start with you, Janvi, ma'am.
So see, I wouldn't probably be the best person, since I'm a psychologist. I don't go that into the medical aspect or medical history. Mine is more related to the psychological impacts that they are going through. But say if I'm seeing a new client, all the medical history that I take, a lot of their recent blood reports after the pandemic had started, vitamin C, vitamin D, vitamin B12 were, in deficiency in most of the clients that I've seen. And research suggests that all of these things, are related to the way we, or have an impact on the way we feel, the way we think, and the way we behave. So if more research is done in this area, we'll understand that because of less exposure to the sun, because of more exposure to screen time and technology, the impact that it has medically had on individuals has also led to psychological impacts. But I don't think I would be the best person to comment on this.
No problem, ma'am. That's we're thankful for the psychological aspect that you discussed. We can you, Vidya, ma'am, shed some light on this?
So what Johnny ma'am mentioned, absolutely a few things that we did observe are the vitamin deficiency. Something else medically that I would, psychological and medical, I would say here because they're all connected. I observed is the sleep patterns, which has been affected in a lot of individuals. Um, because of the increased screen time, one, of course, I mean, there are various other factors, but just because of the increased screen time and the blue light exposure, sleep patterns have been disturbed in a lot of individuals, which in turn has led to digestive issues, psychological issues, and various other issues. So that is one common thing I think I've observed in a lot of individuals in the past couple of years. Other than that, something in women, which because there is restricted physical activity, not just women and men, but women I've observed is increased in PCOS syndromes, and secondly would be a moderately elevated cholesterol would be seen because again more decreased physical activity in individuals. A sedentary lifestyle has creeped in a lot of us, and it's not like that we didn't have it earlier, but at least we had some movement to go to the car or go to the lift and take some steps or anything. So it has just heightened the risk of other lifestyle disorders which already pre-existed in a lot of people. So yes, there has been an increase in that from what I've seen.
Thank you so much for your insight, ma'am. We can, Dr. D'Souza, can you also tell what was the difference in the cases that you saw during COVID and as compared to the pre-COVID era?
You're talking from a physical health perspective or from a mental health perspective?
So you can tell about both of them.
Okay. So, I mean, I would speak more from a mental health perspective. I think what COVID brought in was a whole gamut of COVID related mental health issues which came in. So, there was the whole anxiety of getting COVID, there was anxiety of while you were under quarantine. There was a lot of depression post COVID because there was a stigma that you had COVID, and many societies didn't look at you very favorably that you're a COVID recovered patient. Apart from that, there was a lot of psychological issues related to loss of a relative, to COVID, because they couldn't say a decent goodbye, they couldn't have a decent funeral. So the grief was not expressed as it should have been. So this bottled up grief and the lack of mourning led to a lot of psychological issues. Apart from that, people who had COVID, a lot of the COVID medications induced depression. We also had a lot of COVID induced cognitive deficits, which, we saw people became slow and they became, so that was all seen. Then there was the fear of the vaccine that came up, whether to take the vaccine, not take the vaccine. A lot of myths and facts related to that went on. Post vaccine, the first day, if you got fever, there was anxiety again. So, all these kind of things were there in the initial phases. Now, of course, I mean, I always say COVID was like a nagging mother-in-law initially, that we were, all getting used to. And now, over time, now we've learned, we've married her well, and we know how to deal with her, so it doesn't really worry us anymore. We've adapted well in the marriage, so that's how things are. But the thing is, on the physical health aspect, I think yes, vitamin D deficiency, uh, diet going haywire, a lot of food being ordered, so a lot of, weight gain. Some people used it to lose weight, some people use gained weight. So, all those things happened. Sleep cycles went haywire. And I think what happened was, because of a lot of excessive mobile phone use and tab use, we've also seen a lot of people with finger pains and strain on the fingers, because a lot of finger usage went on. And because of work from home, posture, sitting, a lot of things, went sort of haywire. So, don't get always a comfortable chair in office to sit. So, all these things played a big role. And there were people who worked at night, there were people who worked in the day, so sleep cycles went for a toss. And I think the excessive gadget use led to a lot of people getting specs. That was another thing. So, they all went for their eye checkups and they were told you need reading glasses at least. So a lot of people developed reading glasses. So that's what I would say COVID had. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for beautifully, telling the whole spectrum of cases that were brought by the COVID. Thank you so much.
So this next question is, I would like to start with you, Janina. COVID has brought a lot of changes into our lives, and again, some people were able to adapt, and some people took a little bit more time. What do you think has set the difference between the two? What do you think has made one person been able to adapt quickly and the other person has struggled? Was I not audible? Should I repeat, Janina?
It's for me or
Uh,
for?
I Sure, sir. Please answer. Please do.
No, I didn't know who the question was addressed to. I'm sorry. I
Please
just felt
answer.
everyone was looking at me. So
Yeah, we couldn't hear who the question was for.
yeah, we couldn't hear the question, but everyone kept looking. So I thought maybe I'm the one who didn't hear. Huh?
I'm so sorry. It's probably
Yeah.
my
Just repeat your
mistake.
question, then I think any one of us can answer. That doesn't matter. Yeah.
So my question was, like we've been discussing since the beginning of this panel discussion, a lot of people have been able to adapt quickly while others struggled a little bit more. What do you think were the factors that set one apart from the other? What were the factors that allowed a person to adjust more quickly?
Let Vidya or Janvi start. No, better. The more psychology group. Yeah.
Johnny ma'am, please.
Sure. Um, okay, now what I feel is a lot of factors, environmental factors, social factors, personal factors, professional factors, uh, and especially one of the most important over all of this is their individual personality. A lot of people are more flexible and more adaptable, by I mean, they're just individually like that, or their personality is like that, and that is one of the major factors. um, Apart from that, of course, environment. If the family, if suppose they have, the family environment or the family dynamics are not are not very healthy. If suppose the family environment is a little toxic, it becomes more difficult. It has become more difficult for a lot of individuals living in such family environments to find to adapt to the changes. um, if your family environment is more, it's healthy, and if the dynamics are stronger and more cohesive, it has it has made things easier for individuals. It has made adapting to new situations easier for individuals. um, Social aspects also have been have played a major role, because um, when a lot of people who are extremely social have, some of them have adapted by by organizing. I'm sure all of us would have seen that our families had organized some card games or some online houses or something like that, to make sure everyone is socially indulged and at least some time is getting spared in all of these things. But at the same time, when people there was a set of people who were not able to socially adapt while all these while house restraints were going on. Health factor has also been a major, I think, major impactful aspect. um, People whose health, or who actually got covid and who were really impacted by covid, who had to get hospitalized, or who got severe symptoms and all of that, have found it more difficult to adapt to all these changes, because there also has been research saying that the psychological impact of covid uh, uh, has been major. People have gotten into depression, people have started getting negative thoughts, have started finding it more difficult to adapt to changes and all of that. So I think these are few major factors, but as I started, the most important factor was individual's personality, according to me.
Thank you so much, Janvi ma'am. Vidya ma'am?
Yes. I absolutely agree with Janvi, as she mentioned about the environmental, social, economic factors, health factors. These are very important factors that play a role in the context of the individual that you're speaking about and how they can adapt to a certain situation. Very rightly said about the individual personality of the individual plays a very significant role. Even if not COVID, any dire situation, right? To be able to adapt in any situation, the personality of the individual is does play a significant role. How I look at it and talk about is the relationship one has with oneself. I believe is very important in any dire situation that we're in, and that leads to the resilience that we build towards the situation. Right, for an individual who is more emotionally secure, they can adapt much better emotionally, financially, and socially. All of this does play a significant role. But I believe emotional security is very, very important as well, something which is very often overlooked, which plays an important role in the relationship you have with yourself and the things around you. Right. So that plays a very significant role in helping you adjust, helping you adapt, in helping you know, because the pandemic was a situation which is inevitable. It was a threat to every one of us. No one was safe to this pandemic. We're all prone to be, in a situation where we might have COVID or something would happen to us. So, and that is something that was not in our control. And for an individual to be in a situation that's not in our control, it's very difficult for anybody to be in that situation feeling helpless. The only thing that can help us get through that space is knowing and believing that I can get through this dire situation myself, whatever may happen. That trust within self. Yes, that acceptance of not being able to control things that you can't, and knowing that the only thing I can control is myself. That foundational relationship with yourself, which is built over trust and acceptance, does really help in adapting in various situations, because that's very key to move ahead in life. Yes, that trust and acceptance. So I think that played a lot of important role. That does vary in each individual, the trust and acceptance with himself to be able to deal with situations and various different situations, because we were all in this situation. It was inevitable for all of us, right? So that, I think, is something which does uh, come up very significantly, I believe, along with the other factors which were mentioned already by Shani.
Thank you so much, ma'am. And the quote that you mentioned, that your relationship with yourself defines every other relationship in your life, is something that has personally always resonated with me. Thank you so much for sharing that. Avinash, sir, would you like to add on, please?
No, I think they've practically covered, I mean, everything. So I don't think I would want to add anything. Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
So COVID made not only work and study into an online transition, but also the medical health. It also transitioned into an online world. In psychology, the online therapy came into existence, and the psychiatric patients, psychologists, psychologic patients, all the problems got dealt in an online and a virtual way. So, how do you, like Dr. Vidya, ma'am? You have a very holistic approach of treating the patients, and when it comes to medicine, we know that it is a multidisciplinary approach. You have to, put yourselves into the shoes of the patients, understand their situation, especially in the mental health issues. So, how do you feel? Was online therapy a barrier to this, or it did not affect it in any way, connecting with the patient?
So honestly speaking, in the beginning where everything was shifting online, I did not believe that it would be possible for us to adapt completely to this, right? Because um, being a mental health professional, being a medical doctor, both, we do, as I said, the physical body is also something that we look at, and a lot of information is also given by the body and not just verbally. There's a lot of non-verbal expression that happens through the body, which we do pick up on when we're in front of people. We do assess that, yes. And even little gestures like, passing a glass of water to your client, passing the tissue box, which are gestures of empathy and compassion, which provide that safe space and non-judgmental space, and provide that space for the client to, to build rapport, etc., which is very key, especially when there's a new client coming to you. Right? When there is no bond, that person doesn't know me, and we're just sitting in front of each other. These are few gestures that help build that relationship. So I did not. I mean, I did have doubts about it before in the beginning, while starting with online sessions. But something that I observed with time is, I think, as we mentioned in the beginning, that the adaptability, how everyone's so easily adapted to the virtual platform over the years, is being observed even in the online sessions, right? Some of them, in fact, have got an advantage here because they can do it from their safe space of home, or some of them now can, for example, some individuals can't tell their parents that they're going through therapy, right? Now they can do it at home without telling them, or go to the bathroom and tell them. I have had clients who've taken sessions from going to the terrace or to the bathroom. Now, that remote accessibility, the accessibility to therapy has increased so much, which I think is a big advantage, especially in a country like India where mental health is a stigma and a taboo, where we don't talk about it. This shift has made it so much easier for people to access it, and that caused that shift in look how people look at mental health as well, making them believe that their help is available and it's just a click away. I think that's a big advantage that we have developed over the past 2 years, which I think I'm very grateful for in the past 2 years, because it's much, much needed. And about the cues, which I talk about, the physical body, etc. Now I think we've adapted so much just looking at each other on screen that we started picking up virtual cues more than the body cues, because our brain is very adaptable like that. It's very intelligent. It adapts so sooner. So I really feel like the online sessions have helped a lot of people over the past couple of years, and especially in the pandemic time when anybody and everybody needed somebody to talk to, wanted that help available. To have this platform online was a boon, I believe, for a lot of us. Yes.
Thank you so much for your answer. It was really helpful. We would also like to ask this from Dr. D'Souza. Like, how do you feel? Was online therapy beneficial for the patients as well as for you for connecting with each other?
Well, I think the biggest advantage that online therapy and consultations have done is, I think they've helped to remove some amount of stigma when it comes to, seeking mental health help. Because there were people who, were, I won't go to a psychiatrist, I won't go to a psychologist. They were able to now connect to a psychiatrist or a psychologist from the comfort of their bedroom hall, their own house. So that fear of going to a clinic, was removed. Secondly, the psychiatrist came into your drawing room, that was, or the psychologist came into your drawing room. So that was one major advantage, I think, that happened. Another advantage that happened was people with lack of access to mental health care could use this platform to, get mental health care. We had a lot of patients from, I think, smaller cities and rural towns and tier 2 cities and probably even rural areas who could connect to a psychiatrist or a psychologist in a metro, primarily because of the online avenue opening. Even in a city like Mumbai, people who would normally take 1.5 hours to probably, reach your clinic because they're coming from a faraway suburb, were very happy to use this online medium because it saved them a lot of time and energy. And I think so. So what has happened was that it has improved, I mean, access to mental health care. There's no doubt about it. We were initially a little worried and apprehensive about things, but I think we've all got now our systems in place. So we're fairly comfortable with online care. And I think what's also happened is, I think patients are now fairly comfortable with online care. So the whole advantage is that, very often you have a patient that has a session with you at 7 p.m. and he's delayed in the traffic. He can start his session online, and then probably reach your clinic in the meanwhile and continue his session physically with you, while so he doesn't lose out on time. At the same time, if he's unable to come, he still doesn't miss a session because he can sit in his office or home or somewhere and do his session. So a lot of patients are using a combination of online and offline consultations based on their availabilities and their schedules. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you so much, sir, for the answer. I want to change this question a little bit. You guys told that the patients are very happy with the online therapy. One issue that comes with the online therapy is going online, and many patients fear the internet, especially putting their personal information into the internet. In today's era, information is power. If you have information about someone, you can misuse it also. So, Janvi ma'am, can you throw some light on this? That did the patients fear going into an online transition, or was it difficult at the initial time and then smoothened it, or how was it like for you?
So I don't think I have personally faced that particular issue. I don't think people have feared uh, filling in the referral form that we usually. So our process is we send a referral form to the client. The client fills in their information and sends it back to us, and once the session is done, we fill in the notes of the session, and we put it on our portal, um, which is of course very confidential. So I don't think we have personally faced any of such issues. I don't know about the other two panelists, but something that I personally, a problem that I faced when speaking about confidentiality is that in our profession specifically, we cannot let anyone else listen to our conversations, listen to our sessions. So while at home, while so many other people were there around, it was very difficult. If in some other profession, two people could sit in two different corners of the hall and work, but with our profession, we need a separate room where no one is interfering and no one is listening, and the sessions go on for hours together. So I mean, we might have, say, 3-4 sessions in a day, so it will go on for 3-4 hours in a day, and blocking that slot in the house, and just for the sake of confidentiality, that had become a major issue for me, and I'm sure for many other psychologists as well. For clients as well, them talking about their own personal emotions and personal thoughts and the deepest of their thoughts, uh, in in a house or in a house setting where other people are right outside the door. They have that constant fear that, oh, what if my mother or what if my husband is listening to me, especially with domestic violence cases. It was very difficult even for clients for that matter, and even for us therapists, to make sure, to maintain that confidentiality aspect. And what all things we had to do to kind of maintain that confidentiality aspect, I think only all of us know. So I think that was one of the problems that we all faced.
Thank you so much for your answer, Janvi ma'am. Vidya ma'am, would you like to add something to this?
So yes, what you mentioned about people questioning, like I think in the starting of the pandemic, when online sessions had just begun, and not many people were used to online sessions. I had a few individuals who had, like, we fill up forms and consent forms, etc., before starting with the process, who had questions like, "Will my session be recorded?" Right? For example, as Johnny mentioned about, abuse cases, or cases about even young adolescents who have been abused by their family, etc., who are scared to talk about it, or any other cases where, which is very very deep thoughts of theirs which they have not expressed to anybody, and they're taking their first step to express it to someone for the first time in life. It is very natural for anybody to have that question in mind. Yes. So especially when mental health is still new in our country, where nobody knows that it's a confidential, not everybody knows that it's a confidential space. You have to make them aware that, whatever you tell us is going to be super confidential. It's not going to go out of here. It's not going to be recorded without anybody's permission, etc. So I did have one or two people like that who were very new to the concept, and wanted help, and was, reaching out for the help. Yes. So the what all we can do is, of course, spread more awareness about it, educate more people about it, so that they know about this. But yes, one or two cases, not many. But as I said in the beginning, when online sessions were started, a lot of people were reaching out and, trying to see how this works. And it was new to them, that therapy, the whole concept of therapy was new to a lot of people. And now it was accessible, so people were trying to access it and try to understand what it is. Even now, people are trying to just access it and understand what is therapy about. Can I, try it? And I mean, does it really help? How does it help? How does it work, etc. So these questions are still there, quite legit questions in people's mind, because the awareness is still to be broadened and widened in a lot of our in the country. So yes.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for your answer. Dr. Avinash, I would like to ask to you that were there other problems that you faced from your side or from the patient's side regarding online therapy?
Well, I think the most common issue was the instability of an internet connection, because I think what happened during COVID was we all put a lot of extra load on the internet. Everyone was using it. So I think connectivity reduced, speed reduced. Most importantly, in the middle of the session, somebody would log out and just conk off, and that kind of a thing. So those things were a big problem. Second issue that came in was not every patient is comfortable with an online therapy. So you would sometimes see half his face, or see a ear, or see a nose, and I mean, that kind of thing. And you would actually have to educate the patient that you have to probably sit down properly. And like, I've had a male patient who's come in for online therapy in a banyan, and I have to tell him, you've come in for therapy, so you'll have to be properly dressed. I mean, you're in your house, I know you're a male, I'm a male, there's no issue. But the thing is, you still have to be properly dressed. You're coming in for a therapy session. I mean, I don't come in for a therapy session in a t-shirt. I'm dressed in the way I would be dressed at my clinic. So, I mean, the basic decorum of the fact that therapy is happening has to be maintained. So, I mean, there have been instances where I've had a patient who's in the middle of a therapy session. I mean, of course, she's a mother. So, the kid walks in and tells her, open this jar. I'm not able to open the jar. All these kind of things happen because therapy is happening at home. So, I mean, these interruptions are, very common. Or someone will shout and tell her that the dhobi has come and the laundry has come and this has come, and and she'll say, excuse me for 2 minutes, I have to come back. And so I mean, we understand these things. We, of course, we have to let go. These things are things which do happen. So it's absolutely fine. And I think another thing is, again, the platform. So uh, I mean, most of the times I have used a WhatsApp video call to talk to patients, and they've been very comfortable with it. But Zoom is something that not everyone is very comfortable with. So generally, I normally tell my patients that you send me the Zoom link. So it's your Zoom link. It's not my Zoom link. So there's nothing to worry. You made it. It's your Zoom account. It's all in your control. And I will sort of join the link. So I think those are the few issues that we have. And I think beyond that, yes, I don't think the technical aspects were I think the most important hurdles.
Yeah, thank you so much, sir, for your answer. Fahima?
Uh, since Sir started off by sharing some incidents, I would actually like to put that question forward. Are there any particular instances or incidents that happened that has really made you think that okay, this is definitely we are definitely living in a pandemic and this would normally not happen? Are there any such instances that you think you come across, Dr. Vidya?
Uh, can you repeat the question? I didn't understand the latter part. You meant definitely happening in the pandemic in what sense?
It's just different from what would have happened in a pre-pandemic world.
Well, I think everything was new during this pandemic. The way of dealing with the situation of not being able to step out. Who would have thought about that? Not being able to step out of your house, right? Not being able to uh, go and talk to your parents, not being able to say goodbye to your loved ones. Yes, not even see them when you lose them, right? These are few things we never thought would ever happen with us. So there was a lot of such things which were very new to a lot of us. So, for example, if your parents got COVID, you would not see them, you can't touch them, you can't help them. That helplessness feeling of not being able to do things for your loved ones, and even if you want to, I think this experience was something new for a lot of us. We have felt helpless before, we have felt these feelings before, but there was always a way of doing something physically, right? If not emotionally. But I think during COVID, that physical boundary which came about made us feel a little handicapped, and that helplessness feeling is something which overpowered a lot of us. So I think that's one of the major feelings which I believe is what we all experienced collectively during the pandemic, which is new to all of us. We never expected that we would have such a physical handicap uh, in any situation before. Even though we had everything we need, we still couldn't. So that is something I believe the pandemic has brought to us.
Thank you so much.
Mhm.
That's a beautiful way to put it. Thank you so much, Dr. Vidya. Janvi ma'am?
Um, I mean, I think one of the most drastic change that we have seen is the grieving process. When people have lost their loved ones during the pandemic, and a lot of times even the bodies of their loved ones were not accessible, and the kind of guilt and the kind of helplessness that we've seen, um, each and every grief counseling session that I've taken, most of them have felt that, oh, I could have done so much more. And I wish that member would have probably died in some other way, but in this particular, I mean, this is the worst that we could have ever seen. And there are people who have even seen, who even kind of gone to the cemetery to burn their bodies, and they there is absolutely no help. People have taken their own wood and put the body on the, I mean, the entire scenario had been so traumatic. And I think this is something that I've never seen in my experience before, and this is something that stays with me even today, because a few experiences of my clients, and the way they've described those scenes, it still haunts me sometimes. um I think this is something I would never forget about this particular pandemic phase that we have all seen.
Thank you so much for sharing that. That sounds
Yeah.
extremely painful. Thank you. Dr. Avinash, sir?
Well, I think, I mean, being a doctor and the fact that I work at Sion Hospital, I've had the chance to, be in the middle of the pandemic. I mean, I have had, I would say, on a personal note, yes, I think death of four colleagues this in one day is something that I think has been the most difficult part to make me realize, yes, I'm in the middle of a pandemic. And yes, I was lucky. I was a psychiatrist, so I was not really directly working, with COVID patients. So this is one aspect. The other stark reality is of the fact that it also made us realize that while we are sort of prepared and we know about COVID, we also have to revamp our healthcare systems, and that too for the general population. I'm not talking about, we have good healthcare systems when it comes to the paid category, but when it comes to the general hospital category, the quanta of patients coming in versus the beds available versus so many things available was far less. And it's not that the infrastructure isn't good, it's very good. We've done a great job as far as COVID goes. But I think what happened is, I think I always remember and I always say this, that we felt we dealt with a first wave which was beautiful, and we were just putting our feet up and thinking we've done a great job, and the second wave struck us, and that's when we realized, yes, we're in a pandemic. And we were praying that we don't have a third wave. Luckily we don't have it as of now, but we don't know, I mean, if it's going to come. But the thing is that so this is what it taught us, that we always thought, okay, SARS came and went, it hit China, it hit Hong Kong, it didn't come to India. We never thought COVID will come to India. We also thought it will remain there, but it came. And I think it has taught us to now be what ready with what I refer to as pandemic preparedness, which probably we weren't aware of earlier in our country. Yeah.
Thank you so much, sir, for sharing with us. The pandemic preparedness is definitely a term that I will forever carry with me now. It's a beautiful way to put it. Thank you so much, sir.
So we're near the end of the conference. I would just like to, ask Dr. Avinash, building on this concept of pandemic preparedness, what are some suggestions that you would like to pass if, in case COVID's third wave or any other pandemic comes or any other thing comes? What are some ways that will help us to deal with the mental health issues in a better way?
Okay, so I think one of the biggest things is, to understand in pandemic preparedness, we don't know what pandemic is going to hit us. So, it's not that we're prepared. It's not like an earthquake or it's not like a tsunami that we know, we're ready for it. So it's not that, an earthquake is predicted 3 days from now. So we're ready and we know, okay, when it comes, we're ready. So that's not the case. Here we don't know. It could be viral, it could be bacterial, it could be anything. And what kind of virus also, we don't know. Now, the whole issue here is, I think we have to be, all doctors have to be equipped in basic medical care, so that tomorrow a psychiatrist, an eye specialist, a cardiologist, everyone can get into the rigmarole of taking care of patients in the pandemic. That's, we need to have refresher courses again and again, to teach us the basics. So if someone is not able to breathe, how do I intubate him? If someone is not, so many things, we need to be sort of prepared and aware of these things. We also probably need to have stock of supplies, ventilators, masks, whatever else is needed, ready and available. We need to have beds available. We need to have huge admission facilities like we've had in Bombay, available. So these kind of things have to be sort of put into place, and they should be, or it should be possible to develop them in around 24 to 48 hours if needed. So we need to have that kind of preparedness. Apart from that, we need to be mentally ready also, that a pandemic can come. What happened during the first wave was, no one was mentally ready that this is going to happen. In the second wave, we were mentally ready, but we were also mentally exhausted. So that's what happened. So we need to be mentally ready ki, yes, this can happen again, and it can happen, maybe not now, maybe some years from now, but it can happen. And when it happens, we have to be ready that this can happen. So I think that's about it when it comes to pandemic preparedness.
Thank you so much, sir, for your views. Janvi ma'am, would you like to build upon this concept in a mental health perspective? Like, what should an individual have in his personality or his mental health abilities to deal with the coming problems in a better way?
So I think I would like to say that firstly, it is important to have certain self-care regimes, in place. You need to know how to take care of yourself. You need to know how to, uh, you know, uh, how to address your emotions, how to address your feelings. Um, I think one of the best ways that I have come across is by having certain things that you really enjoy doing, and try and indulging in those activities regularly. Um, Having some amount of even 15 to 20 minutes of physical activity on a daily, doing 15 to 20 minutes of physical activity every day. Um, Apart from that, having, I think, emotional self-care is the most important, where doing doing things or knowing yourself better, I think that is something which is very important. And taking steps to do that, either go to a therapist yourself, or spend some time with yourself, understand more things about yourself. Do not distract yourself from your own fears, or do not distract yourself from your own inner emotions. Try to face it with that kind of with that kind of zest. I think that is something which is the most important. If you are having, I think, the same thing that Dr. Vidya Nair said, if you're having a good relationship with yourself, you are ready to face any challenge in this world. That's something I believe in. um, so I think that is something which all of us individually can work on, to make sure that we are psychologically prepared for any challenge or any new um, thing that life throws at us. I think, yeah, that would be something that I would like to say.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I think our viewers will feel quite good listening to your suggestions. Also, Vidya, ma'am, can you add, based on your past experiences with your clients during the pandemic, uh, any other suggestions for our viewers to deal with these mental health issues better?
So I think what Janvina mentioned is exactly what I would say. Working on yourself is all that you can do in this situation, right? Because in a pandemic situation, any situation, these are things that are not in our control. So to come and understand what is in our control, that is ourselves and my mind, my body, even both is in our control, and working on it is something that we all can do as a preemptive measure. Yes. So having tools and techniques to help us in an emotional space when you're not doing well emotionally, when you're not doing well physically, to be equipped with those tools and techniques. And not just when there's something that's happened, but even before that, working on yourself way before that. Because knowing yourself, understanding yourself is going to help you deal with any situation, big, small, whatever it may be. From my practice, just I can just advise you a few practices that you can do to help yourself understand. Like one, of course, I would tell everybody go to therapy, because we're all brought up in a system where we have been conditioned with a lot of fears, with a lot of beliefs about ourselves, which form as blocks in our way in dealing with dire situations. And therapy is one of the most beautiful ways to help us be aware of it first and work on it, and let go of it, reframe it, reprogram it, whatever needs to be done for yourself. Other than that, we're all responsible of ourselves mentally and physically. So we don't really need a pandemic to make us realize that we need to go to therapy, or we need to take care of our physical body, or we need to do some practices. I think we're all responsible of our mind and body. This is the only thing that we have, in fact, that we come with. So I think we all need to take care of it very responsibly. Do practices that help you be emotionally well, physically well, take care of your diet, take care of your sleep. These are specific things which are very essential for living, right? Your food, your emotional well-being, your physical well-being, they're very essential for living, and not just when things go bad, right? At every time. So being more mindful of it, being more aware of it, and mindfully practicing whatever is needed to be done, I think is everybody's responsibility towards themselves. So yes, start looking within, start looking, taking care of yourself better, start being more responsible of yourself emotionally, physically, and socially in every way possible. That's what I would say for my practice. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nair. Just if you guys allow, just one last minute, I would, if you can recommend certain helplines or websites related to mental health for our viewers, it will be quite beneficial for them as well as us. So we can start from Dr. D'Souza.
Well, I think there's an NGO called Talk to Me, and they offer free counseling or counseling at a very minimal rate for those who can't afford. So this is primarily for that group that often feels that I may not be able to pay the counselor. So this is something that I would want to tell you. It's called Talk to Me. They have a website. They are based out of Mahim in Mumbai, so you can check out and go in. So that is one thing which I would say. I think I'll hand over to the others. Yeah.
Thank you so much, sir. We'll mention it down this video. Thank you so much. Janvi ma'am, would you like to recommend something?
So I work at Empower Center in Mumbai, and they have an online helpline number, and I'll just dictate the number. If anyone, if you all just want to put that in, it's 1800 120 8200 50. So it's a
Yes.
24/7 free helpline number for, and specially curated for the for pandemic or during pandemic, if I may say so. And it they have well trained psychologists who answer the calls, and um, it's been used even across all the um, um, all the government agencies in Mumbai and in different parts of the country. So I think this can be a helpful number for them.
Yes, ma'am, for sure. Thank you so much. Dr. Vidya, ma'am, if you would like to recommend something.
So there are a few which I do recommend, which they've been these are helplines which have been there from a very long time that I'm aware of. There's iCall, there's Roshni helpline, and there's the Bandravella Foundation. So these are a few which have been there for a very long time, and I've seen to it myself that they've been working not just during the pandemic but way before that, having helplines for they have peer counselors, they have people who will redirect you to counselors, they will tell you just listen to you. Even sometimes people just want somebody to listen to, so they have peer counselors that way. So somebody who just wants somebody to talk to and went out can also reach out there, and they can redirect you to the right place.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Not to mention, Social India also has Inside Out. It also provides patient listening ears to the clients. Thank you so much to Dr. Vidya Nair, Janvi Sutaria, ma'am, and Dr. Avinash D'Souza for your time and enlightening our viewers with your views. That was really very beneficial to attend this panel discussion. Also, I would like to thank Twitch India and Impact for bringing such an encouraging conference, which was very needed in this time, especially in the post-pandemic era, so that we can prepare for the next pandemic. We can, give ourselves a little bit of time to prepare and to face if anything else comes, not even the pandemic, anything else comes in our lives, to face that strongly. And thank you, and most importantly, thank you all the viewers for listening to us. Thank you so much. Thank you, ma'am, for attending. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all. Thank you, Fahima,
Bye.
Kriti, Dr. Avinash, and Janvi. It was lovely being here. Take care.
Same here.
Thank you
Bye.
very much, ma'am.
Bye.
Thank you.